morning. Can you all hear me well? All right, good, because we've been working on the sound and stuff. So, yeah, I need my iPad. Need technology now. So, all right. All right. So, my talk today that I've been working on for a while is called Leaning Into Our Fears. Because we experience so many emotions, and out of all of our emotions, one of the emotion that we have so little knowledge about, there's so much confusion about, so much misunderstanding about, is fear. Okay. All right. It's fear. Because many of us attempt to avoid our fears because our fears are accompanied by an amount of discomfort, a certain amount of discomfort, and we don't like that discomfort. We avoid that discomfort. We attempt to bypass it. And so, or we erect barriers. We create barriers so that we don't have to experience it. We desensitize ourselves to the things that cause us to be fearful, so that way we can feel safe. So what is fear? Let's just get right to it. What is fear? Well, Webster's has a definition about fear: an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something or someone is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. What produces it? Now that's the real interesting part. See, what produces fear, or the sensation that we feel that we associate with fear? Nature created a defense mechanism to ensure the survival of our species. Our amygdala, which is part of our limbic system, was created by nature so that we could perpetuate the species on this planet. There were a lot of things that we had to deal with 20,000, 30,000 years ago. And in order to avoid becoming prey, our amygdala would then generate a response and let us know that there was a danger. So, but I want you to think about that for a minute. And I want you to think about, based on the original purpose of our amygdala and limbic system, how many of us have experienced fear that had to do with our physical safety, our physical survival? I'm sure we can count that maybe on one hand when we were actually in physical mortal danger. And all of the other times, was our life really in jeopardy? Were we in danger of being eaten? So I want you to think about that for a little bit while I discuss a metaphor for fear. A good metaphor for fear is the sound barrier. Now, for those of us who don't know what the sound barrier is, up until about the 40s or 50s, it was, or 40s really, it was, the sound barrier was a speed that aircraft could not, they could not, once they reached this particular speed, to go any faster was difficult. So they noticed that they would get a lot of aerodynamic drag, and the planes would, as in the flight, it would get really rough and jerk and shake and things like that, and it would not go any faster. Later on with technology, they were able to pierce that sound barrier, and then they were able to achieve supersonic flight. Because, and I use that as a metaphor because fear is also a barrier. It's a growth barrier. It is an emotion that announces rather loudly when we're about to reach a point of expansion. And as we break through this barrier, we're able to experience new ways of understanding, living our truths and being a light to others. In the book of Psalms, chapter 27, verse 1, it reads, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Now, the book of Psalms was mostly attributed to King David. We all know about King David, and we know about some of the famous fears that he overcame. One of the most famous fears of them all, and that we've heard about ever since we were children, was about when he met up with Goliath, David and Goliath. And Goliath, metaphysically, in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, represents aggressive, domineering ideas that parade themselves prominently in consciousness and through fearful threats of disaster keep us frightened into submission. These domineering ideas of error have one argument that they impress upon us at all times: fear of what would happen should we dare to meet them openly and oppose their reign in consciousness. So how many of us can identify with that? How many of us have been afraid to say something that we really felt within us to say? It's just like there was something that was just saying, go ahead and say it. But we were afraid. We didn't say anything because we were fearful about what would happen should we then decide to go ahead and take that step and say what was in us to say. Well, David felt those fears too. He felt those fears too. But he trusted in the divine more than he trusted in his investment in fear. Now, many of us may be thinking, well, that was King David, that was David, But King David was like many of us. As a matter of fact, he was a nobody. He was a nobody. And in truth, there are no such things as nobody, but when you think about the fact that really no one knew who he was the eighth son of Jesse. Okay, so he wasn't firstborn or second or even thirdborn. He was the eighth. All right, and even his own father didn't recognize him to be the leader that the prophet Samuel was looking for. His father, his own dad, and he's like, are you sure it's not him? I mean, he's taller and stronger. He's talking about his other sons. He's taller and stronger. You sure? And prophet Samuel's like, no. So, and yet nobody really none of his brothers and none of the Israels demonstrated what David demonstrated at that time. When Goliath for 30 days was parading and saying, have someone come and meet me openly in the field, and everyone was fearful, including Saul. And yet David, then armed with a sling, went and showed or demonstrated to everyone what was possible. I'm going to read something in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. It says, evil has no power except that which man gives it by his thought. Resisting evil is a way of affirming its power. A positive, fearless attitude in facing the appearance of evil overcomes it. And this attitude comes from the understanding that evil has no power. Leaning into our fears is like when we experience a finally someone said it moment. Has anybody ever experienced that? A finally someone said it moment? Like, everybody's in a room and there's some sort of elephant in the room. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. And everybody's kind of waiting for someone to say what everyone is afraid to say, and nobody wants to say it, and if you can communicate through our thoughts, it's like, are you going to say it? I'm not going to say it. Are you going to say it? No, count me out. And then finally somebody has the courage to say what everybody's already been thinking about anyway. And it's like all of a sudden you can just feel the room just exhale in relief because someone finally showed the courage to set everyone free. That's what leaning into our fears are like. So take that on a larger scale. The same dynamic is playing itself out in society each and every day. People are afraid to express themselves, afraid to express their truths, their authenticity, thinking that if they say certain things that are in them to say, that someone won't like them, that they'll be alienated. We all feel this, and so we comply with our fears. We comply with our fears, and like sheep, we move with the herd, and we fearfully go here and there in attempts to avoid being fearful and allowing our ego to dictate where to go, what to do, how to be. But see, we're missing the boat. Because with fear comes opportunity. And that's what this talk is about. With fear. With that same thing that we've been trying to avoid comes opportunity. So I've created an exercise that I put together, and I actually I have a handout, and I'm going to give it to you after church, and feel free. And so no matter what, and I want you to try it, at least try it. I invite you to try this. So no matter what sort of discomfort that you are feeling, when you are feeling it, as you feel it, whether it is sadness, sorrow, embarrassment, disappointment, jealousy, resentment, boredom, whatever, instead of reacting to the discomfort, stay present. Instead of avoiding or escaping that discomfort, stay present. Instead of judging that discomfort, just continue to feel it and stay present. Observe the discomfort. Feel it. Experience it. Ask yourself questions about it. I've even included some sample questions. What lesson does my discomfort have for me? What is my discomfort attempting to teach me? What core beliefs are at the root of my discomfort? Or one of my favorite, Holy Spirit, what am I supposed to learn here? You know, I went through a situation recently as a temporary spiritual leader, and it was not easy. I have nothing but hats off to Farrellyn and what she has to deal with and things like that. You know, I am in ministry to run a ministry and things like that, but it is a lot of work. It is not easy at all. And by the time I came home, I felt like I had gone through 10 rounds of a boxing match with a big guy named Bubba. Okay? Yes. I was exhausted. I was traumatized. I needed to just be alone by myself so I could lick my wounds and heal. And I didn't want to look on the bright side of anything. Well, look, I'm back home. I'm back home. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just feel my pain. I didn't want to avoid it. Didn't want to run away from it. I wanted to feel it. There were things that I wanted to do. I got to do a lot of things, but there were some things that I didn't get a chance to do. And so when I felt angry, I went ahead and felt it. When I felt sadness, I allowed myself to feel it. I didn't try to cheer myself up. I didn't try to escape it. I didn't try to go to one of my go-tos when I first started meditating. I didn't just try to meditate it away. That was my go-to escape a long time ago. I was just, let me meditate real quick. That was my escape. That was my escape. But I didn't try to do that. Sometimes people were present to be compassionate, to talk to me. Sometimes they felt uncomfortable. We all have a certain amount of bandwidth, and that's based on a personal thing. If we are not dealing with our own things and our own discomforts and stuff like that, then we don't have a lot of bandwidth to deal with other people's things. And so when people tell you that they're going through things, and you start feeling sad, you want to get away from them, that just basically means that you haven't done the work on your own selves. Am I making any sense? And so it's difficult for you to experience that. But over time, as I began to experience, just truly go through the depths of my pain, I began to experience a level of intuition, of connectivity, of awareness, not only of self, but there was just a deeper understanding of so many things that I had never experienced before. And so it became like a gift. My experience that as far as a temporary spiritual leader became like a gift. Because had I not gone through that, I would not have experienced this heightened level of awareness and sensitivity and intuition. And so I decided I was going to read. I was going to read something for personal, for personal enjoyment. Ever since joining the ministerial school, it hasn't been a whole lot of reading for personal enjoyment. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it, but every semester, it's like we got 10 and 12 big old books to read, okay? And that's every term, not every semester, every term. And we have 4 terms a year, and it's like you don't have any time to really read anything for personal. So I decided I was going to read something first. I had a book that I hadn't read for 2 years in my Kindle. I decided to read it. Prema Children. What frightens us? And I found out that the exact same things that I was doing was the exact same things that she talked about. So this was like a spiritual confirmation that I was on the right track. Now, I've also included in this handout one of the things that she also talks about, or I've kind of made a hybrid out of it. I have my own little exercise, but it's influenced by her. So when you're going through your pain, still in this exercise, when you're going through that pain, when you're going through that experience, I want you to think about the millions of other people that are going through the exact same thing. Now, see, this does 2 things. Number one, everything is energy. But what this does is this conceptualizes in your mind of a world that's outside of you. That you have brothers and sisters out there that are going through the same thing. See, that helps to increase your compassion. That allows you, that helps you, that aids you in being more present for other people so you can be a light to them. And what that also does, what Prema Children says it does, and what I believe, is that sends out a healing energy throughout the planet. And the people don't know you. They don't know where this healing energy is coming from. They don't know where this is coming from, but you're sending it out to them because you're visualizing it and you're believing it. And if you believe it, no matter what it is, it is. So thinking about leaning into our fears, what also comes to mind is a quote that was attributed to Edmund Burke. And I paraphrase this quote. It reads, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing." This nation is in desperate need of people with the bandwidth, with the mental bandwidth to be able to hold the compassionate space for things so that we can engage in difficult conversations that many of us want to avoid in order to contribute to a healing energy. Yes, it all starts with us, but at the same time, there is a collective us. And much of what we're seeing in the world today is a result of a lot of us being like us and avoiding our fears and wanting to do anything other than tackle our healing obstacles. Am I making any sense? You're seeing a collective of that. We're our own leaders. Our own leaders are just most of all just pointing the fingers. So it's up to us. It's up to us. And what I believe is that if we invest in a healing within, it will result in a healing without. As within, so without. So as we invest in our own healing, as we invest in focusing on what brings us discomfort, as we invest and focus on what brings us pain, then we will be more of a light to others in our immediate communities. As our immediate communities are then impacted, then they will be a light to the people in their circle of influence. And it will continue to go from there. And then you'll see Texas light up. And then all the people, and then Texas will then begin to expand out to the other states. And then you will see a healing, a gradual healing. I don't know how long it's going to take. I have no idea how long it's going to take. But I know that we have to start somewhere. And that starts with us. You know, I think about unity principles. I love unity. As Fallon was saying, I grew up in unity. I've been in unity for, believe it or not, 45 years. Starting at 6 years old, I'm 51. 45 years of unity. I've seen a lot. I've seen so many beautiful miracles. I've seen so many things that cause me to feel proud to be a part of this organization. I've also seen a lot of areas for improvement as well. I've seen a lot of areas for improvement. I've seen these beautiful unity principles because, there is only God. So we don't really believe in evil, or at least not any power that can oppose God. But man can still visit disharmony upon each other, which we can then call that like maybe a little evil or something like that, a little Eve or something like that. But there's no power that's outside of God. So we know what the absolutes are as far as the principles. We know it, but are we really living it? Because we're co-creators. We're co-creators. And so what that means is that this is a grand participation. We're supposed to participate. It's a participation. So unity principle number 3 talks about it. Our thoughts have power. They determine our reality, our experiences. Okay? We don't get to not participate. So even in our silence, even in our complicity, even in our avoidance, even in our erecting defense mechanisms like anger, we still participate. The only choice that we have is how we choose to participate. That's the only choice. We're going to participate anyway. +40 years. Unity principle number 5 states that it's not enough to just know the truth. We have to demonstrate it. I mean, Jesus the Christ, our older brother, he knew the truth. But had he not demonstrated that he's going to walk past the lepers? So walk past him. Well, the sickness isn't real. Is he going to do that? No, he didn't. He still participated. He still participated and demonstrated that it wasn't real by healing. He didn't hide behind principles. He didn't use them like, I guess, a cross to a vampire or something or whatever. He didn't do that. He participated. David did not say, well, I believe in Jehovah and therefore everything will work out okay. No, David participated. He saw all of the Israelites were afraid. They were desperately afraid. So he participated. He didn't have to, but he did it. And he inspired. Because when we participate, we inspire. There are a lot of people out there, out in the world, that are in pain. There's violence that's being committed against people for things that they don't have any control over. Maybe we can have some compassion for them. Maybe we can send out a prayer. Maybe if an opportunity comes up, we can stand up and demonstrate unity principles. If that opportunity ever arises, maybe we can do that. So, I want you to think about it. Compassion, equality, inclusivity, that's what the Christ is all about. Now, I say all of this not to create social activists or to attempt to inspire social activism. Why I say all of these things is to show you the relativity between our own dysfunction, as far as not being in wholeness, and how the world, or how this country, which seems to be divided on every single thing. So I want you to understand that this nation depends on our healing. I want to infer the urgency that this nation has, whether they know it or not, on even the healing that takes place in this very room. As far as the people in this very room, this nation needs us in order to heal. So, how do we participate? Let's just get right to it. How do we participate in alignment with our Christ nature? Christ is about coming together. It's about unity. It's about a joining. It is not about a separating. It is not about a me and mine and you and yours. That's not what Christ is about. So how do we practically participate in alignment with our Christ potential? Well, one thing is by following the wisdom of our hearts. You see, our hearts metaphysically is our Jerusalem. It is Jerusalem. Jerusalem metaphysically means the heart space. Because Jerusalem knows what to do in any situation, any circumstance. It doesn't matter. It is a greater intelligence that transcends any mental intelligence that you could ever have. Our Jerusalem knows exactly what to do in any situation. It knows. That's one way. Now, in order to really be able to hear our Jerusalem, we've got to tear down those walls so that we can hear it better. If we have all these defense mechanisms that are, keeping us from feeling emotions, that's how our Jerusalem communicates through us. It communicates. Our intuitions come through a sort of emotional intelligence. And if we cut that off, if we desensitize it, then it's almost like you're turning the volume down on hearing your heart space. Now, what else can we do? Now, grab a hold. Here we go. I'm going to say this. What else can we do? Learn to be okay with ourselves. That's right. That's what I said. Learn to be okay with ourselves exactly as we are. Not the ideal self. The world doesn't need your ideal self. You can leave that person back home. We need the person that you are when you think nobody's looking. We need the person that you are like when you secretly eat that extra piece of chocolate or whatever, and get that, you get this joy, and then you laugh, and then you look around, make sure nobody's looking. We want that person. We want that authentic self. That's who we want. We don't want who you think that we want. We want you. That's who we want. That's who we need. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 48, that's exactly what our master teacher, our elder brother, Jesus was saying when he said, be perfect. Therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. He spoke Aramaic, but it lost its translation. It lost its translation from being perfectly authentic to, be perfect. Don't do any, don't make any mistakes. That's exactly, it lost its translation as it went through different language translation. It lost its meaning. But he was saying, be perfectly as you are. Just be yourself. Not yourself after you've gone through therapy. Not yourself after you've read this self-help book. Not yourself after you've worked on a couple of things. No. We need you right now. You, yes, that you that you are, that you're naturally when you think nobody's looking. Or that you feel like sharing at some point with people that you trust. That's who we need. That's who we need. That real you. That childlike, innocent you. That's who we need. That's who transforms this world. That's who transforms and is a light to people. That's who we need. Another thing. How else can we participate? Learn to recognize that all things change. All things in the external change. And that's where we actually end up creating a lot of suffering for ourselves, because we want to, as human beings, we want to feel safe. We want permanence. We want something that we can count on. We want something that we can depend on. We want to know that when it comes down to it, this is going to be there for us. Well, unless we're talking about spirit, it is misdirected. Spirit emanates through many channels in our lives. And we are grateful for those channels. We're grateful for our spouse. We're grateful for our home. We're grateful for our family. We're grateful for our loved ones. But spirit is the source. It is the source of our blessings. And we have to recognize spirit as a source. We can place our dependency. We can place our trust on that. That's what David placed his trust in when he had this 9-foot-tall giant with a spear and a sword, and he still came to him with a sling. He was trusting in spirit. On the upside of that, when we learn that all things change, then we can appreciate them more. We don't know how long our friends are going to be here. We don't know how long our spouse is going to be here. We don't know how long we're going to enjoy our good health. We don't know how long these things, which are good, they're all good, but they're not meant to last. As a matter of fact, they're not going to last. All things that are created in this reality change. And so to get that in our mind and recognize that and be okay with that, and then divert where we need our safety, where we need our permanence, move it on spirit. And then be more grateful. Then reach out to that person who you think that they're going to be around next week where you can call them. Reach out to them today when you leave church. Tell them that you love them. You don't know how long they're going to be here. You don't know how long you're going to be here. Am I making any sense? Is that making any sense? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. I don't make sure I'm not, All right. And the last thing is practice recognizing our fears as growth opportunities. because that's what they are. We don't need to front or run away from them. I mean, unless it's something that's going to eat you. If it's not going to eat you, then it's a growth opportunity. It's a social fear. That's a growth opportunity. Unless you're, if you're on a jungle safari or something like that, well, yeah, run. If there's something, yeah. Other than that, it's a social fear. That's all it is. You'll be okay. And so we have to retrain our minds, and that takes some time. I don't expect you and me. I'm training my mind right now that way as well. This is a process. It's just a process. It's a process. It's a process because, for however many years you've been, and however many years I've been here, like 51, I've been running away from it. So now I'm training my mind to not run away from it anymore. Okay, that takes some time. It's okay. And then be transformed, because transformation will come. Transformed like that caterpillar that undergoes a pain in the chrysalis as it transforms into a butterfly. Like that transformation, like that piece of gold that has to be purified in the fire. As all of the impurities are slowly cooked out of it, and they put it back in the fire, and cook out some more impurities, and put it back in there, and cook out some more impurities. That's, if that gold was alive, I don't think that fire would feel very good. But anyway, it's being cooked into pure gold, transformed like that piece of coal that for 1 billion years undergoes pressure in order to become a brilliant diamond. So too are we being called by Spirit to lean into our fears, recognize them as the teachers that they are, and be transformed by them. So let us begin. In closing, let us begin to learn to lean into our fears. Let us learn to work together as we begin to lean into our fears, to ultimately help make this country, America, truly great. Not great for some, but great for all. It's time for a change. And that change begins with us. So let's take that into meditation. Let us go within. Let us feel the words of this message, if we so choose. Let us feel it entering consciousness. Let us affirm new ideas coming from whatever it is that we received here today. Let us affirm that we are perfect, just as we are. Any thoughts outside of that, let us relinquish that. Let us let that go. Let us see the necessity of our personal transformations. Let us become curious about the unique individual messages that our fear and discomfort may have for us. Let us experience that. Let us experience that oneness, that absolute oneness that we share with all creation. Let us think about our blessings and what we're grateful for. Let us allow that to gently and gradually enter consciousness. If some of those things are people, let us consider reaching out to them sooner rather than later. Let us see all life, all experiences, all creation as a gift to be explored, curiously explored like a wide-eyed child. And let us affirm our oneness with each other. With people in our communities, people in this state, people in this nation, people in our world. Let us feel that oneness, that unity, in the name and after the nature of our elder brother, wayshower and master teacher, Jesus the Christ. And so it is. Amen. My brothers and sisters, go and be that light that your Father, Mother, God intended for you to be. Thank you.